evening and welcome all that matters, valued listeners. On behalf of IGMA Inc., thank you ever so much for taking time out of your busy weekend to connect with me, Dr. Angela Griffin, aka Dr. A, for our weekly All That Matters talk show / podcast, where we continue to focus on our strategic pillars, which are business, legal matters, education, nonprofit, technology, and our healthcare. And today, I am honored to welcome aboard my very special guest, subject matter expert, Mr. Lee Wright, president of the Wright Improvement Group, aka TWIG, TWIG. So, how are you today, Lee?
I am doing fine. And yourself, Dr. A? How are you doing?
Today, I'm so excited. I'm almost giddy because the mastermind of technology on board with me. So I can honestly say I am honored and I feel like I'm about to learn quite a bit today. Unlike any other presentations, I feel like I'm under the camera.
Yes, you are.
That note, why don't we just get started with you sharing, although I know a little bit about you because I've done a deep dive, but why don't you
Mhm.
share with our guests a little bit about your background?
Well, from South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina, country boy, proud of it. Um, I joined the military and I did 28 years in the military. Didn't know I would, but I did. It turned out to be a home for employment, if I had to say that. um, I did that for 28 years, and during that time, and a little bit about my background and my upbringing as well is, being in South Carolina is an amazing thing, but I would tell you back in the 70s and 80s, I didn't get access to a lot of things that students or certain students did. For one, I never took an SAT. I didn't even know what it was. Yes, my guidance counselor never even brought me in and said, "Hey, SAT." I'm like, I had no clue what it was, right? Um, and one of the things I said that it was, I don't want to end up in an old folks home, which we know is a nursing home, or live with my mama all my life, right? So I joined the military. And of course, that was 28 years, was that a decade and 8/10. So I joined the military. When I was in the military initially, I was in combat arms, just fighting, learning how to fight. And then I switched over to logistics. And one of the unique things that I do is research. I've always been research hungry. And it doesn't matter the information, I go down a rabbit hole. That's what I call it. I go down a rabbit hole every chance I get. So during that time, I learned a lot of stuff that I self-taught myself and just research and doing it hands-on. And one of the unique things about the military is, they have different training levels where, hands-on, briefing, step-by-step performance. But my favorite one was hands-on, do the research and then go do it. Actually get dirty, put my hands on it, and learn it. And like we had discussed earlier, one of the things I've always had is good listening ears, like be quiet and listen before I form an opinion. So that helped me learn a lot of things that were really good for me when I transitioned from the military going into the civilian sector, which from there, I started working for Department of Defense, DOD. And one of the things they needed was a technology networking type person. Okay, I'll do it, right? And they wanted me because of my operational knowledge. I knew how to organize businesses. I knew how to help solve issues. I knew how to create. And when I worked with this company, it was Northrop Grumman. When I worked with them for a little while, as a soldier, they said, "Hey, we want you to come on as a civilian." I said, "Okay." So I came on, and they said, "We have a system, a training system that we need to work. We're paying a lot of money for it, and nobody could get it to work." I said, "Okay." And they said, "All we have is the user guides. That's it." I said, okay, we don't have anybody to help you. I said, oh, and it was a multi-million-dollar system, right? And they've been trying to get someone to do. I said, okay. So I learned that system, and I learned everything that supported it and was linked to the entire network and everything. And they were amazed, right? Quick turnaround. And then from there, they kind of, I got some promotions and things. But I've always been, we say technology. I can remember my first computer I bought from Best Buy back in the day. I just took it apart and started adding the pieces and parts I want. Like the hard drive is not big enough. I added one that was larger. The RAM is not. The random accessible memory is not enough. So I added it. So that's a little bit about my background. I've always been a giver. I've always been connected to the community. I've always been that, and I've always wanted in everything I do to give back, not out of obligation, but just out of because I want to. It feels good. And that's driven me. Say again?
That feeling of giving back and give not for the dollar amount, but it just kind of, I'm of the opinion that perhaps you're going to tell me it ties into how and what inspired you to start the Wright Improvement Group.
100%.
I just felt like that was going to be the reason. And hence the reason I love the fact that you've got an acronym, because I can remember that. So did you tie the acronym in first, or did you tie in the name of the company first?
Well, it was one of those things, Dr. A, that I was just brainstorming and throwing stuff against the wall, and I'm like, man, growth, what grows? I said a tree. So a tree is in the background on one of the logos, and I said, man, the tree has to start small, and it starts from a twig, and then the name came to it. Then the name was created from the twig of a tree.
You easily see how that happened. That happens to me a lot. As they say, acronym queen. I will come up with some ideas and back into it. So I can definitely appreciate how you came up with the name. Speaking of the name, I don't want to miss the opportunity. Now that you've gotten the name, can you share maybe a success story of the type of client that you've helped or they've benefited from TWIG services?
I got a client now, and she's pretty amazing. Where she a manager in the big box stores, and I remember the first time that I was talking to her one time, she showed me a little picture of a little shop, and she wanted a store, etc. And never had time. I'm saying did a lot of work, but could never bring the puzzle together, right? And I said, man, good people, right? And I said, well, you know what? If you listen and pay attention and do what I ask you to do, we can get that dream going. And I would say over time, they've created a website. They're learning to create websites. They're learning to do they did their logo design, created the business. They had a business model too. They had a business plan. But it was a business plan of the store or the retail they wanted to do, but you have it, but it doesn't mean what you want it to mean, but it's on paper. So helped her, helped her get what she wrote on paper to come to be reality. And just a long story short, I would tell you that, and she's still growing, pretty amazing lady, and she got a shoe line, and she received her first shoes not too long ago. I'm talking about boom, Dina E, right? Dre's Fashion that's the name of the company, Dre's Fashion, and she's got her name on her shoe line and her purse line and all that stuff. So it went from having a little, you can imagine like a building back in the 60s or 70s, little white building. You know how the strip malls used to look? And boom, now she has her own online retail store, which she's trying to do a brick and mortar as well.
We've got to get ready to take a break, but before we take our first break, would you do me a favor and just share some contact information? Because I'm confident somebody's going to want to reach out to you before this is said and done. So how about you just share briefly how to reach you?
Yeah, the Wright Improvement Group. You can go to calltwig.com. You can also Google the Wright Improvement Group, and it's going to connect you with me and see a lot of the business needs assessments I have out there. But also it's going to connect you with this too in the background, Constructive Talks, because it all is supported in the same mind frame.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing it from none other than Lee Wright. So if you will, let's take that first break and we will be right back. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking that quick break with us. We are back and I am still here hanging out with none other than Mr. Wright. Get it? Right? He's right. Well, because I'm hanging out with you, Mr. Wright, I'd like for you to step back for a moment. I got so excited. I wanted to make sure that I didn't put the cart before the horse. So let's go back. Why don't you share the mission of your organization and the vision so that people will understand why I am so excited?
Wow. I would tell you, me being a giver, like I said initially, and I organize everything I do so the end result is to give back, right? And so the company is a front to the give back. What do I mean by that? As I make money, profits, and network and meet people, it's designed to have that not only financial but influence to be able to go into those communities and have people that I know or have made contact with have the same passion, at least at that one moment that we're there, to give back to the community at that event or during that time. Just because it's like, hey, they're giving back to fertile soil, like I said, if they're dealing with me, I create collaborations, not, customers. I create collaborations and partnerships with folks. So, I would tell you that, my mission is the give back in everything I do. And part of that was, as you know, and as we know, giving back, hey, you have to have finances. You have to have finances to be able to reach, to have the outreach. And that's what the Wright Improvement Group, TWIG, that is the financial capital for my give back to the community. So the majority of anything I make would be designed on kind of like when we met, giving laptops to to students. And that was done by you and the Stewart Foundation identifying a need. And it's important to understand that need is never ending. And if it's not folks like us that can see it with 20/20 vision or better, that need exists, and know when we lay down at night or even wake up in the morning, man, you know what? If I don't do it, who's going to do it? But I'm not going to wait on anybody to do it, because I feel that my commitment to being blessed by the creator of the universe to exist.
I totally agree. It sort of aligns with our mission. We train, develop.
You made me think about a thought. I often wonder, how is it that I can partner with people like yourself? And it's very clear in this instance that because you have this unique give back, you see the need, pretty much aligning with IGMA's mission in that we train, develop, and empower individuals and organizations in order to help them cope. Now, the coping part was so relevant, especially around the pandemic, because we didn't think we were going to need to help people cope. But what you do in giving back, you literally help people cope. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but thank you for all the people that you helped, especially when we met, having met at a Stewart Foundation initiative, knowing that you were in the background, making sure that these kids got what they needed from a technological standpoint. I just have to stop for a second, put my kickstand down and say thank you. I have to say that because your heart, I would say, this is just me outside looking in, maybe your heart's bigger than your pocket.
Yeah, well, that happens. It's always like that, right? I think it's like that forever. That's just the way it is. That it's because there's so much assistance that's needed out there around us that, man, it's too big for a million people, right?
I get it. And not only that, I mean, think about it from this perspective. The way I see it, TWIG, TWIG acronym, is catering to the unique needs of different industries, peoples. How is it that you see the services that you offer taking an even bigger position in helping people?
It's the value of what they get, right? And I say the value of what they get because if they had to pay for it and then trust the people they pay for it, they probably not going to get the same hands-on value because it's so much done beyond the proposal because I see Twig sees the need for it, right? And I can't just give somebody something and say, okay, go with that because they still have learning to do. It's still things that it's like making spaghetti, right? Make the spaghetti, but you know what? You have to chop the tomatoes up. You know what? You have to put the Italian seasoning in. You know what? You have to boil the noodles and make sure you have oil in it so it doesn't stick. It's not just a spaghetti. So I teach them, I give them the recipe to success so they don't need me for that thing anymore.
Gotcha.
So what are some of the most popular features about TWIG that your clients find valuable?
Hands on.
Hands on.
Yeah, hands on. And those things, those known unknowns are discussed because a person might not, or a company might not know they need this, but we discuss it. Say, hey, and it's never finger pointing either. That's one thing I always say. I would not finger point at your issues because I got these three right here coming right back at me, right? And because I think it should be a wonderful, enjoyable experience when you can grow within your organization on the things that you just are not good at.
So hence the reason, the benefit of doing a needs assessment when the person first enters your website, that helps you help people like me determine what our needs and wants are, or separate our needs from our wants.
Correct. And you got to be honest with yourself, not to me. So it's not like you're telling me. No, you're talking to yourself when you feel that out. And the more transparency that you give yourself, you can identify some things you wasn't even really paying attention to until right then, until when you start filling that out.
So with your technological skills, it's safe to say that you have a plethora of skills that you probably can't even put on paper, but when someone comes to you with a need, you can streamline that which you can do to help them understand how they can be more proficient at what they're trying to do.
100% of the time, you're right.
I'm telling y'all, ladies and gentlemen, I know y'all are sitting out there going, she's just shooting the breeze, but I'm trying to ask those questions that you guys want to know, because if you can take the assessment, go on Mr. Wright's website and you take that assessment, it sounds like the marriage starts, or at least the opportunity for marrying up with you to help you begins with you being, as you said, transparent. I like that.
With yourself. Be transparent with yourself. Not...
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get ready to take a break. But before we take this break, every time I'm going to need you to remind us how to connect with you, because some of us probably could benefit from going to see some of the work you've already done. So tell us again, how do we connect with you? And we'll get ready for that next break.
Okay, call twig.com, of course. If you go there, the website is pretty neutral, and it'll tell you a few things about what we do. The business need assessments is on there, and also, as I said before, Constructive Talks. Hey, you Google it, and it's going to bring you to the Wright Improvement Group, my bubble opinion, call Twig, and I look forward to hearing from people that really do a good self-assessment on their businesses and even personal self. Not personal business, but as a business owner or someone striving, do an assessment on yourself. And you know what? Come on, let's collaborate and make it happen.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking that quick break. it seems like the breaks aren't long enough for me because I try and ramp up. What is it that I need to say next? Well, just so you know, I think I'm going to ask that question that many people wanting to know. Mr. Lee, I need you to share with our listeners, once we make that phone call to call you, we've done the assessment. Well, better yet, what happens next and how does pricing come into play? Do you have a set of prices based on my needs? Can I pull from a category? Talk about what that looks like.
Well, one of the things we do at the Wright Improvement Group and TWIG is we will definitely, every company is unique. They have their own individual things that they need accomplished and the need to streamline. And our motto, one of our mottos, we have a couple, is we help companies do what they do better, right? And the importance of that is we're not there to change you or give you principles that we make for you to adopt. No, we're there to help you create your own principles. That way you can, like I said earlier, you can troubleshoot things when we're gone. Based on and we off those principles. And what we do, we synchronize everything in we help you, not we help you synchronize everything that you do from the time you turn the key, come in your office to the time you turn the lights out. Synchronization is critical because we don't want you work. You know how you have the race car and one is in front of the other. We want you to kind of keep them lined up, on that track, in your entire business model. So one of the things we do is once we do that needs assessment, we sit down and have a good, hard, long conversation with you. And pricing it'll be determined after TWIG figures out the best approach to helping you improve what you do already, or even bring in some new things you might need to think about. It's pretty unique, but one thing I do take pride in is we're going to be competitive with high quality organizations out there that provide good products, but we're not going to take kidneys from you. You can best believe that. You're going to get more than the value that you paid every time because we want you to feel good enough to say, hey, not only am I going to call TWIG again every chance I get, I'm going to let everybody know about the Wright Improvement Group and say, hey, they're pretty user friendly, they're kind, they work with you, and the value for what you get exceeds what you pay. So I would say that pricing is pretty unique by the organization based on what they need.
Does it matter where my organization is located? After COVID, many people became virtual. And so does it matter if I'm in how far can I be to gain access to you? Or do you have just a certain region that you work in?
Well, one of the things I do is virtual is good. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. As long as, like I say, transparency from you is critical from whoever we're helping and partnering with, in that collaboration. Total transparency. If you have a board, if you have 2 or 3 people that's with the organization, hey, we sit down just kind of like we're Zooming now. We sit down and show all paperwork, share screens, and have those conversations. So the location is not an issue. Now, if I feel that, hey, I need to come in there and see what you're doing and hang around you for a day or two and kind of look at your operations so I can get a good idea of what you're trying to accomplish, but what you've been doing and work to this point. So we can get you to that next level. We'll have that conversation. And what would I say if I have to come out? You know how it is doing a proposal. You split the however we decide to do it that's comfortable for that organization to do. Hey, no problem. Working with the military and DoD, of course, you get flown out everywhere when you're helping folks. And the government does take some of that burden, and also the customer.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you this: do you have a preference of nonprofit versus profit, or are you versed with both sides?
Dr. A, business is business, as I see it. Now, whatever the organization is serving to their customers, clients, or in the community, it's still a business model behind it. And that's what I focus on more than your last mile.
Gotcha.
Now, if an organization needs assistance with their last mile, could we help with that? Yes. We could, no problem. But, how are they preparing the product for the last mile? Ooh, come on, let's have fun with that. How are you handling your staff? Do you have a good team? Let's build that team up properly. Let's make sure that leaders of that team know how to lead for real, not just to have the position, because that all affects the product and services that your clients get from you. It's like that recipe I talked about earlier. If you have eggs and one of the eggs bad, but you still putting it in the recipe, it's not going to come out as good for the customer or the person who's eating it.
Right. Interestingly odd, I happen to have had several individuals contact me. They're starting their nonprofits, and implementation seems to be a struggle. And so I find that people want to start a nonprofit, but as far as laying the groundwork, once they've gotten, they say for example, the 501c3, they struggle with next steps. Do you offer any services in that regards, or is it just a technological piece or the communication piece? I mean, do you have maybe like a place where you can say, I can help you with this, this, and this, and then that way I can focus my attention as, say, the business owner with areas of expertise from your end? Do you have anything to offer in that regard? Or are you just so custom, whatever the need is, you can help identify a way forward?
Well, one of the things, that's a good question. So in technology, yeah, we can help you with your marketing. We can help create, websites and different things, and kind of look at how your setup is, from a technical point of view. But operations is usually the sticking point of how do I deliver this or communicate with potential customers. See, that right there, kind of like you said, if it's those other pieces in there that you need, and we can come in there, Twig can come in there and help you identify, hey, you're good at this, so put this to the side for now. These are the areas that you need to work on to deliver your product or services. And it just depends on the organization. I would tell you that we're versed in a lot of things, but that business model, business operations, those are good things that we're really good at. If you don't have a platform that you need to shoot video, give some promos shot, get some pictures, hey, Twig can help you with that marketing project. If it's making sure your operations, from, like I said before, from the time you come in, what's the first thing you do as a business owner? What's the first thing your staff does? Start identifying those processes to get them in place. Help you write policy. If you need to write policy and procedures, no problem. If you need help with staffing, like onboarding procedures, a lot of times I've talked to some folks, man, they didn't even have pre-questions to ask their potential hirees. And that's important. So, areas like that we're really good at. And that's where we come in. And when you do that business needs assessment, we identify what we can help you with from the very beginning.
And I know I'm hitting you with hypotheticals, and I so appreciate the business needs assessment, because after having started it, I will say the questions were so direct, but they were open-ended enough for me to provide detailed responses. So thank you on behalf of those that may have to follow me. And I was a little hesitant, I'll be honest. I'm thinking, do I want him to know everything about me? But I realize now, after talking to you, how important it is for me to be as transparent as I can, because already there appears to be a path that we can take from the onset versus you having to pull it out of me like you're pulling a tooth. But I'm grateful for what you've already shared. So my question to you, well, I know we've only got one more segment, but I would like to say this. I know you've got a lot more that you offer, to include being an author and a speaker, and I'm trying to save that for the last segment. But is there anything else that you really need us to know before we take a big break here? And not a big break, but just a break right here.
If you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, either new or been there a while, and you know that you want to provide better products and services or organize your business a little better, you have to give us the opportunity to help you. And like I said, you're going to get quality results. And one of the things that we have to be honest about is we can't have a business if we want that business to operate on filet mignon, T-bone steak, but we're only willing to give peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to promote it, to build it, to fund it. No, you have to say, you know what is the value? What is my value to myself? Hold on now, because that's really critical. What is my value to myself? And when you can say, man, you know what? I'm not supposed to deny myself anything. Now think about your business. What is your business value to you? And one of the first things that I look at as we close this segment is my business the potential is unlimited. So if I put a value on it and say, I will only pay this to get this, I'm denying myself the true potential of what I may can be or create.
Absolutely. Well, you've got to share once again, because somebody's going to jump off and somebody's jumping on at every segment. So remind us again, how do we reach you?
The web, you can Google me, call TWIG.com, the Wright Improvement Group, Google that as well. And like I always say, hey, Constructive Talks LRW on YouTube, got 100 plus videos on there. And it talks about things like we're talking now, get the give back and having that good mindset that it attracts good.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to prepare for our final break. So if you will, let's take that break and we will be right back. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for taking that final break with us. And I am still here hanging out with none other than Mr. Lee Wright, the man, the SME, the subject matter expert, and he represents a phenomenal organization. And rather than have me ask a series of questions, Mr. Wright, I'd love for you to just take the mic, remind people who you are, what you do, how you do it. Share with us how we can connect with you so that you can begin to empower us in our own spaces. And don't forget to tell us you are an author. You got to at least give us an insight, quick little tip into your book so that we'll know how to grab that book so that we can get connected with you. So from this point forward, why don't you just take the mic?
Okay, hey, I really appreciate that, Dr. A. And don't give me all the credit. You're doing so much amazing stuff where you are and around the nation that it goes to say my hat. If I had one on, I tip it off to you and thank you for what you do. Because without folks like you, I wouldn't exist, right? So thank you. A little bit about me again, just to kind of recap. South Carolina born, went to military 28 years, logistics, operations, strategy, those type things. And I took those skills and talents I learned in the military and working for the Department of Defense, and like I say, Northrop Grumman and all those folks, to drive into my passion of giving back to people. I've done a lot of things that are self-taught, and you know how many hours it takes to teach yourself. I call it the cha-cha-cha, right? One step forward, two steps back, but you keep grinding and keep doing it, and eventually you move forward. So I thought about it, like, how do I help people with a passion, with the talents I have? And that's where I came up with the company, the Wright Improvement Group, TWIG, the growth of a tree, right? It starts from a twig, but it's this mighty oak tree that we see that lasts forever. And sometimes people carve their name into it, the hearts, right? And what the company provides is it provides solutions for people who need help in their business model. One of the, like I said earlier, the motto is help people do what they do better. Help companies get streamlined and better at the things they do. Because we're not going to give you a 6-step program that TWIG follows. No, we're going to come in and collaborate with the client and create your own 6 steps and your 6 principles. That way you can troubleshoot when you having issues. You can have those good checks and balances in there. And we do anything from business operations, business processes. We help with your marketing. We help with your branding. We help you just figure out what you need. But you have to do the good business needs assessment. And what is that needs assessment? Transparency. You have to lay it out. Because if you keep those things and don't lay it all out with transparencies, there are still issues that you might have that you need to solve. Let's get them solved in one step. working with Twig. And you talk about, well, you talk about so many good things. And one of the things that the reason I created the company was to give back to the communities, right? So part of the portion or profits, a portion of the profits, let me say that correctly, is going to go directly back to the communities in some shape, form, or fashion, right? And I say that because, man, I can remember me being a little young man growing up and didn't have a lot of people to turn to. But I remember going to Phyllis Wheatley Gym Center in the summertime for school. That's a give back, right? That's a giving back to the community. And that's what I do. And part of that is I'm an author as well. And it was like, man, I was talking to the lady one day, and actually it's the same lady that I helped with the shoe business that we talked about earlier. She's like, you should write a book. Oh my God, right? And I'm like, okay. I wrote 5 books. I sat down and wrote 5 books. I published one, volume one, the My Bubble Opinion. Everybody, guess what? You can Google that as well. My Bubble Opinion by Lee Wright. And what that book talks about is having say-so in your life, because we're so conditioned from birth to follow this carrot. And I say the carrot is rotten because you never get it. And then as we grow older and get exhausted from that journey that is not there, we say, you know what? We need to focus on ourselves and own our lives. Well, guess what? We can start doing that very early in life and imagine what we could become, right? So the My Bubble Opinion, if you Google that, it'll go to my website, the Arthur website, my blog, a lot of videos I've done and speaking events. But it's there to give back and to empower us, not only with words, but empower us with hands-on methods to actually have say-so in our lives. So there you go, Dr. A. That's kind of a synopsis of me. If they want to have that, be transparent with themselves, do that business needs assessment and see where we can come in and help you. And don't limit it to just business. It could be anything that your company or you are having things that you need to improve. Hey, do that business needs assessment. We'll sit down and have a conversations, and we'll start our hands-on process that Twig is famous for to help you do what you do better.
I can honestly say, and you do a phenomenal job. We recently met. Let me be transparent here for just a moment. When we met, y'all, I was walking in front of the camera and he checked me really, really fast because he is phenomenal at what he does. He is meticulous about it, but he helped us put together a quick little video when we partnered with one of our valued sponsors, if you will, one of our valued VIP partners. That would be the Stewart Foundation. And the video that you put together, I want to publicly say thank you. You did it on the spot. You weren't even prepared to come out and do it. Somebody said, what if we had this? And right on the spot, you sort of did a mini needs assessment. You recognized what we needed. You took it from there. And y'all, if you don't believe me, just go to our website. I'm telling you, you'll see his work, just a snippet of it without any prior planning. Now, if you can do that, I'm going to say right now, Lee, with what you gave us, with no time, just a matter of saying, we thought it and you brought it. I can honestly say, ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to miss the opportunity to connect with Mr. Lee Wright. Twigs. All I got is you owe it to yourself to not delay, but call him today. And on that note, I want to remind you guys, you know how we do. We try not to belabor the hour and keep you all night because you know I can talk. I want to remind you to please head on over to our website, www.igmainc.org. Peruse around because the Lord is blessing us. We've got a lot of new opportunities that are coming forth. Please don't forget to click on every little box that you see because great things are happening for us. And if you're interested in wanting to possibly be considered to be one of our guests on this broadcast, all that matters, all you have to do is reach out to us. You can either reach us via our email, admin@igmainc.org, or go old school. Call us on the phone, 770-422-4048. But whatever you do, make sure you click around on our website. Why? Because there are some great things coming down the pipeline and you don't want to miss them, to include a blog, a possible newsletter, possible YouTube. So, hey, don't be the last one to find out about it. Stay connected with us because the topics that we discuss here on All That Matters are topics we maintain that matter to you. So, on that note, again, thank you, Mr. Wright, for hanging out with me. And for those of you that are going to stay with us from now on, just remember, check in with us at 5 o'clock every Saturday on All That Matters. Once again, good night.